Hi folks, Truby Chiaviello here, publisher and editor of PRIMO magazine, and I'm coming to you today from my office. And I wanted to share with you a book that I read a couple years back. It's a very important book, I think. Currently there's a movement in Italy right now for Italy to break away from the European Union, to follow the lead of the United Kingdom and their historic Brexit vote back in 2016 for that country to break away from the European Union. Now, for some years, I wrote an article before there was even this movement underway in the United Kingdom, critical of the European Union. I wrote articles in PRIMO magazine, and why that was, I was getting articles coming my way from writers, and I was also writing some of them, where some small businesses in Italy were suffering. Some of them were going out of business because of EU regulations. And these regulations didn't arise in Italy. They came from Belgium. They came from Brussels, where the EU is headquartered. And, I find that very troubling that a group of regulators who've never even set foot in your country can pass laws having a terrible effect on local folks there, small businesses, family-owned businesses. So it was a turnoff to me, and I began to write articles that were critical of the European Union. And I applaud what the United Kingdom did in voting to leave this organization. And I hope Italians will do the same. Nevertheless, there are those in Italy, and I've spoken to them, who like the EU. And I don't know at this stage in the game, if they had a vote to leave the European Union, whether or not it would follow the same results in the United Kingdom. I think it would be a lot closer than people think, because Italy has suffered terribly the last 15, 20 years when they adopted the euro as their currency. And so a new book that came my way, when I say new, it was 2 years ago, publishers will send books to me for me to read, and I'll try to publish a review of them in the magazine, in the print version of PRIMO. But with print magazines, you're always limited for space, so what I did was I wrote a review of the book for the website. But it's a very important book, and I wanted to share it with you today. The book is here. It's titled The EU, an Obituary by John R. Gillingham. And this book is written by somebody who is a professor at St. Louis University, here in the United States, of course. And he's a professional historian. He received his doctorate in history from the University of California. And you can see it's a relatively sizable book. He put a lot of time and effort into it. The timing could not have been better. It came out in late 2015, just right before the campaign was underway for the British to leave the European Union. And a lot of technical information here in this book. Even if you support the EU, you may still want to read this book, because it gives a lot of historical background about the EU. If you want to study Italy, you have to get to know the European Union, because Italy is a member of that organization. And the effort of the EU is to consolidate Europe to make it one country. All those little countries that we love, it's going to be one country, European-wide. And this is the movement that's underway with the European Union. Now, there's several takeaways from this book which I think is very important. The first is, how the European Union began. We like to think of it as this bold, visionary concept, the breaking away of borders, the free flow of goods and services and people all throughout Europe. And if you go back on YouTube, for instance, and you look at archival footage of the European Union, you'll see Charles de Gaulle shaking hands with his counterpart in Germany, Konrad Adenauer, and it just gives an idea of this, this bold, visionary idea. Well, that's not really how the European Union began. In fact, there's a key figure that he talks about in this book. His name is Jean Monnet. And who is Jean Monnet? I did not really know about him, but he is probably somebody that a lot of Europeans know. But this is a person who, he died in 1979, and he's just one of these people. We have him here in Washington, D.C. They're always employed. They always have a job at the highest levels of government, and that was who Monnet was. He was always a key figure in diplomacy and economics. He was well connected with the richest families in the world. His own family sold cognac in France. And he was there in charge of an agency, and then he went to another agency, and he kind of developed the European Union. It's his blueprint. And what he is, I mean, if you are a libertarian, if you're an anarchist, Monnet is your polar opposite. This person is a statist on steroids. There's never been a government agency that he didn't like. He is somebody who believes in government, the larger the better, and what he wanted with the European Union is what we got, an organization that would not be governed by democracy, that would not have representatives from various countries, that would not be affected by voters. This is the concept that he came up with. And so before he died in 1979, he recruited a lot of people. He was very well respected, very well known. He was a brilliant economist, obviously, somebody who was very adept in diplomacy, and he's recruited a lot of people in the EU. These people now are recruiting people like them, and you're just getting all these bureaucrats in one place. And this is what we have today. And this is a key figure, Jean Monnet. And it's amazing because here in the United States, we don't know people like this. We don't really hear much about them. But he was a very important person, and he's had a tremendous impact in contemporary history. And the second takeaway from the book is Italy's relation in the EU. The author spends an awful lot of time with France and Germany, and they are just the two key players of the European Union. Italy is almost like a non-entity in some cases. And he talks about how the European Union has benefited Northern European countries, but not Southern European countries. And Italy is the quintessential country of Southern Europe. He raises one important point. In the 1990s, there was this huge scandal in Italy. Half of the elected officials were indicted for corruption and bribery, and there was a window of opportunity there to reform the country. Well, instead of the people looking to Italian leaders to reform Italy, they looked to the European Union, and it just didn't happen. The European Union was disconnected, and nothing was reformed in Italy. The window of opportunity was lost, and ever since Italy has been fully integrated in the EU, it hasn't done well. It's just been stuck in a zero growth economy. And the third takeaway from the book, I think, is just how he makes the case how technology has done away with the need for the European Union. I mean, the free flow of goods and services, of people, is done entirely different than the way they thought it was going to be done when they first came up with the European Union. By the way, it was Rome was the setting where you see the beginnings of the European Union in the Treaty of Rome that first took away tariffs between steel and coal and set up the customs union that eventually became the common market, and that is today the European Union. But he says how, back then, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, if you were a designer, for instance, an architect in Milan, Italy, and you had a client in Germany and you were going to build their factory for them, you would have to leave your home, live in Germany for a few years, and work with your client to design and build a factory. Today, he mentions how you write up the blueprints, you put it on a cloud system. Your client then can log on and see what you've done, contact you by Skype here, for instance, and you can discuss the matter and work out the project. And this is entirely different than what they originally conceived. More and more, too, companies are, if they want to sell goods in your country, in Europe, what they're doing is they're not necessarily building the goods and then shipping them. What they're doing is they're sending the blueprints, the design specs to a local factory, and they're doing it according to that company's specifications. So this is entirely different than what was originally conceived with the European Union. Again, the book is the EU, an obituary. This author is convinced that the days of the EU are numbered, and I hope they are. And I hope anybody who is viewing this video, particularly if you're in Italy and you want your country to rebound, do what the British did. Try and create a movement to leave the EU and succeed at it. And to do so, you may want to read a book like this, because this will be a big help to you. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and for reading PRIMO. As always, you can order a subscription to our beautiful, wonderful print magazine at www.onlineprimo.com. That's our website. And you're also welcome to call us anytime, toll free, at 866-677-7466. On the website, you'll find books for sale, DVDs for sale, and other things. The review of this book might still be on there, so you can also read the actual review that I did. But thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to more videos and more of our Italian-American connection in the days to come. So thank you very much.